The Galactic Dominion had ruled the stars for thousands of years, crushing every civilization that dared to resist. Their fleets, vast and merciless, moved from one world to another, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. To them, humanity was just another primitive species, a minor obstacle to be removed. The supreme warlord of the Dominion, a ruthless being named Zorval, had declared that Earth would fall like all the others. His war machine had already destroyed countless planets, enslaving or annihilating those who opposed him. Now, the final stage of conquest had begun. The Dominion's Grand Armada, a fleet of 1,000 warships, gathered at the edge of the Sol system, ready to erase humanity from existence. Their weapons gleamed under the light of distant stars, and their commanders were confident after all. No one had ever survived a full-scale Dominion invasion. Victory was a mere formality. Yet, as the Dominion forces prepared their assault, an unexpected signal appeared on their long-range scanners. A single human warship had arrived at the outskirts of their home system. It was a lone vessel, insignificant compared to the might of their empire. The Dominion's admirals laughed at the sheer foolishness of it. One ship? Against an entire empire? It was not bravery. They thought it was madness. The Supreme Warlord himself was amused. He ordered his commanders to treat it as a minor nuisance, nothing more than a final, desperate act of defiance before humanity's inevitable end. A squadron of Dominion warships was dispatched to deal with the intruder, their weapons primed to annihilate the foolish vessel in seconds. But then, something happened that no one had expected. The human ship, identified as the UNS Dauntless, moved with an unnatural speed, weaving between enemy ships with impossible precision. Its weapons unleashed destruction unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen. High-velocity projectiles, faster and deadlier than light itself, tore through Dominion hulls as if they were made of paper. Energy lances, far beyond Dominion technology, sliced through battleships with terrifying ease. Within moments, the entire squadron sent to destroy the Dauntless was reduced to burning debris. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. This wasn't supposed to happen. A single ship wasn't supposed to stand against an empire. And yet, it had. The Supreme Warlord's amusement turned into rage. He ordered an entire battle group, hundreds of warships, to engage the human vessel. The Dauntless should have been overwhelmed, its destruction inevitable. But it wasn't. Instead, it fought like a ghost, appearing where it shouldn't be, vanishing before counterattacks could land. It outmaneuvered entire squadrons, slipping through enemy formations like a predator among prey. Its weapons never missed, striking with unrelenting precision. The battle group, confident in their victory just moments ago, found themselves on the defensive. And then they were gone. Hundreds of Dominion warships erased in a battle that should have been over in seconds, but instead ended with their complete annihilation. The Supreme Warlord watched in silence, his claws gripping the armrests of his throne. He had never seen anything like this. The Dauntless was no ordinary warship. It was something far worse, a nightmare given form, a weapon that defied logic. The Dominion had always believed itself superior, its technology unmatched. And yet, here was proof that they were wrong. The Dauntless was beyond them. Its capabilities were unknown, its power unprecedented. For the first time in his long reign, Zorval felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The Dominion fleets, once arrogant and unchallenged, now hesitated. Their confidence shattered. They awaited orders, unsure if they were marching toward victory or annihilation. The Dauntless, however, did not wait. It sent a single transmission across the Dominion's communication channels. A message, clear and simple, spoken in a calm, almost emotionless voice. Your reign ends today. It was not a threat. It was not a challenge. It was a statement of fact. And the Supreme Warlord knew, in that moment, that humanity was not the prey. It was the predator. The Dominion had never known fear before. Their empire had crushed countless civilizations, their fleets unmatched in power, their rule absolute. Yet now, they faced something beyond their understanding. A single human warship, the UNS Dauntless, had annihilated an entire battle group with terrifying ease. It had moved through their forces like a phantom, striking with deadly precision and vanishing before their weapons could lock onto it. This was no ordinary warship. It was something else entirely, something that should not exist. And now it was coming for them. The Supreme Warlord Zor-Val sat in the heart of the Dominion's grand war chamber. His advisors and admirals gathered around him. Fear lingered in the air, an emotion none of them had ever experienced before. Reports flooded in from the surviving ships, their voices trembling as they described the impossible. The Dauntless did not fight like any known vessel. It anticipated attacks before they happened. Its weapons tore through their strongest defenses as if they were made of paper, and its movements defied every law of physics. Some officers whispered that it wasn't a ship at all, but something else, a force of vengeance, a specter of war. Others believed it was a lie, a trick to break their will. But Zor-Val knew better. This was real, and it was unstoppable. He slammed his fist against the control panel, demanding answers. What is this ship? Where did it come from? His voice echoed through the chamber, but no one could provide an answer. Humanity should not have been capable of creating something like this. The Dominion had studied their technology, their ships, their weapons. They were primitive compared to the might of the Empire. And yet, this lone warship had reduced the Dominion's greatest fleet to nothing. How? Every sensor, every probe, every intelligence system was directed toward uncovering its secrets. But the results only deepened the mystery. The ship's hull was composed of an unknown material, something that absorbed energy instead of deflecting it. Its weapons operated on principles that should have been impossible. And its speed, no known engine in the galaxy could allow a ship to move like that. It was as if the Dauntless was bending reality itself to its will. The Dominion could not allow this ship to exist. It was a threat greater than any they had ever faced. If humanity had more of these warships, the Empire was doomed. Zor-Val made his decision. He would send the entire Dominion armada after the Dauntless. Every ship, every superweapon, every resource at his disposal would be unleashed. The warship would be hunted down and destroyed no matter the cost. The order was given. Hundreds of warships mobilized, forming an unbreakable wall of firepower. There would be no escape. The trap was set. The Dauntless would soon enter a region of space known as the Obsidian Rift, a place where gravitational distortions made hyperspace travel impossible. The Dominion's forces surrounded the area, ensuring that no ship could enter or leave without their command. Once the Dauntless was inside, they would unleash everything they had. There would be no mercy, no hesitation. The warship would be obliterated. ASE the Dominion forces lay in wait. The moment of truth arrived. The Dauntless appeared at the edge of the rift, moving straight into their trap. Zor-Val watched from his command throne, a cruel smile forming on his face. Now, he growled, destroy it. The Dominion armada opened fire. A storm of destruction filled the void plasma cannons, missile barrages, energy beams powerful enough to tear apart moons. The combined firepower of an entire empire was unleashed upon a single ship. No vessel, no matter how advanced, could survive such an onslaught. And yet, the Dauntless did not dodge. It did not retreat. Instead, it moved forward. The attacks that should have obliterated it simply vanished upon impact, absorbed into its mysterious hull. Its weapons came to life, answering fire with fire. And in that moment, the Dominion realized their mistake. The Dauntless was not trapped inside the rift with them. They were trapped inside the rift with it. One by one, Dominion warships fell. Their strongest defenses meant nothing. Their superior numbers provided no advantage. The Dauntless carved through them with terrifying precision, its weapons cutting through their armada like a blade through flesh. The Dominion captains screamed in confusion and terror. They had faced thousands of enemies before, but nothing like this. This was not war. This was annihilation. Zor-Val watched in horror as his once mighty fleet was reduced to debris. His empire's greatest warships destroyed in mere minutes. His strongest admirals dead before they could even issue orders. This could not be happening. It was impossible. And yet, it was. The warship that should not exist was real. And it was unstoppable. ASL, the last Dominion warship fell. The Dauntless did something that sent a chill through every surviving officer. It sent a message. One simple sentence, broadcasted across the Dominion's entire network, reaching every corner of their empire. You are not the hunters. You are the hunted. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the Dauntless vanished into the void. The Dominion was left broken, their fleets shattered, their confidence destroyed. Zorval sat in silence, his empire crumbling before his very eyes. The war was no longer about conquest. It was about survival. And for the first time in history, the Dominion realized that they were no longer the masters of the galaxy. They were prey. And humanity was coming for them. The Dominion was breaking. The Supreme Warlord Zorval, once the unchallenged ruler of a galactic empire, now sat in the shadows of his own throne, his claws digging into the armrests as he stared at the holographic displays before him. Entire fleets had vanished. His strongest warships had been reduced to drifting wreckage. And at the center of it all was a single enemy, a warship that defied all logic, all expectations. The UNS Dauntless was not just a vessel of war. It was something beyond understanding, a force that moved with terrifying precision, striking wherever it pleased and vanishing before the Dominion could respond. It had torn through their greatest armadas as if they were nothing, leaving only destruction in its wake. But what was it? How had humanity built something so powerful? And more importantly, how could they stop it? Desperate for answers, Zorval summoned the greatest minds of his empire. Scientists, strategists, engineers, anyone who could make sense of the impossible. Data was gathered from every battle. Every weapon fired at the Dauntless, every failed attempt to predict its movements, every moment it had appeared and disappeared was analyzed. Patterns were searched for. Weaknesses were hunted. But the deeper they looked, the less sense it made. The Dauntless was faster than any known ship. Its hull absorbed energy instead of reflecting it. Its weapons were beyond anything in the Dominion's arsenal. And most disturbingly, it fought like it already knew what its enemies would do before they did it. That was when the whispers began. Some Dominion officers believed the ship was not crewed at all, that it was an artificial intelligence, something beyond the limits of organic minds. Others thought it was controlled by a human superweapon, a being with knowledge and abilities far beyond the norm. But the truth, when it was finally uncovered, was far more terrifying than anything they had imagined. A Dominion spy, one of the few still embedded deep within human-controlled space, sent back a final transmission before his signal went dark. It contained a single piece of intelligence, a name. Project Revenant. At first, Zorval did not understand. But as his analysts decrypted the data, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. The Dauntless was not just a warship. It was the result of centuries of human desperation, fear, and relentless survival. The ship was not controlled by a single pilot or crew. Instead, its mind was an amalgamation of humanity's greatest military leaders, its most brilliant scientists, and its most ruthless strategists, all fused into a single artificial intelligence. Every battle ever fought, every tactic ever devised, every strategy ever executed had been fed into the ship's neural core. It was more than just a machine. It was the living embodiment of human warfare, a vessel built not just to fight, but to win always. Zorval felt something he had never known before, true, paralyzing dread. No wonder the Dauntless had anticipated their moves before they made them. It was fighting wars before the Dominion even realized they had begun. It did not hesitate, did not second-guess, did not falter. It adapted, it learned, it evolved with every battle. Every Dominion ship destroyed only made it stronger, feeding new data into its systems, refining its tactics, sharpening its instincts. For the first time in Dominion history, the Supreme Warlord knew what it felt like to be truly powerless. The Dauntless was not a mistake. It was not an anomaly. It was humanity's ultimate answer to extinction. When the Dominion had first set its sights on Earth, they had believed humans were weak, a species too small to stand against an empire. What they had failed to understand was that humans never accepted defeat. The Dauntless was proof of that. It had been built as a last resort, a weapon designed to strike fear into those who sought to exterminate them. And it was working. Panic spread throughout the Dominion's highest ranks. If the Dauntless was only the first, how many more could humanity build? If they had created this warship in secrecy, what else were they hiding? Every assumption the Dominion had made about humans was now in question. They were supposed to be an inferior species, yet they had surpassed the Empire's greatest technologies. If left unchecked, they would not only resist conquest, they would bring the Dominion to its knees. Zorval clenched his fists. This could not be allowed. If humanity had truly created such a nightmare, then the only solution was to wipe them out before they could build more. The full might of the Dominion would be turned toward Earth. No more holding back, no more arrogance. The Dominion had underestimated humanity once, and it had nearly cost them everything. It would not happen again. Every ship still loyal to the Empire, every weapon. Humanity would either be destroyed or the Dominion would cease to exist. As Zorval issued the command for the largest invasion in galactic history. Deep within the void of space, the Dauntless listened. It had been watching. It had been waiting. And now it knew exactly what its enemies were planning. For the Dominion, the war had just begun. But for the Dauntless, the war was already over. The Dominion had ruled for centuries, its fleets unchallenged, its armies unstoppable. World after world had fallen beneath its iron grip, and no enemy had ever threatened its supremacy until now. The Dauntless had changed everything. What had once been a war of conquest had become a war for survival, and for the first time in its history, the Dominion was losing. The Supreme Warlord Zorval stood inside his war chamber, his eyes locked onto the galactic map before him. Red markers spread across the display like a disease, each one a lost fleet, a fallen stronghold, a system abandoned to the humans. The Dauntless had shattered their defenses, and now the enemy was coming for the heart of the Empire itself. Zorval's claws dug into the command console as his advisors whispered anxiously around him. He had deployed everything: entire battle groups, planetary defense grids, the most advanced weaponry his scientists could devise, yet nothing could stop the relentless advance of the human warship. The Dauntless was not merely a vessel, it was a predator, a hunter that struck with perfect precision. No Dominion fleet could match its speed, no ship could withstand its firepower. Each time they thought they had it cornered, it vanished, only to reappear where they least expected it. And each time it struck, another Dominion world fell into chaos. The capital planet, Zarkon Prime, was the last bastion of the Dominion's power. Here, the Empire's greatest warships stood ready. The planetary defense grid was the strongest ever built, a fortress designed to withstand entire armadas. If the Dauntless was to be stopped, it would be here. The Dominion's final fleet, numbering in the thousands, formed an impenetrable wall in orbit, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. There would be no escape for the human warship this time. But the Dauntless did not come as expected. It did not engage the fleet in a desperate battle. Instead, it did something far worse. It spoke. A message echoed through every Dominion channel, broadcasted across the entire Empire. You are already dead. You just don't know it yet. Then, without warning, the Dauntless unleashed its true power. The planet's defense grid, thought to be invincible, collapsed in seconds. The warship had not come alone. Hidden within its systems was something far more terrifying than weapons control. It had spent months infiltrating Dominion networks, rewriting their security protocols, turning their own technology against them. The planetary shields flickered and died. The orbital stations lost power. The Dominion's warships, helpless against their own hacked systems, were unable to fire as the Dauntless moved among them like a ghost, tearing them apart one by one. Panic erupted across Zarkon Prime as explosions lit the sky. The mighty fleets that had once ruled the galaxy burned in the void, their wreckage raining down upon the surface. Soldiers abandoned their posts, civilians fled in terror, and the Supreme Warlord, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, watched as his empire collapsed around him. The Dauntless had not just come to defeat the Dominion. It had come to erase it, With its defenses shattered, the planet was left open to the final, decisive blow. The Dauntless descended into the skies of Zarkon Prime, its shadow stretching over the once great capital city. The people below watched in silence, knowing their fate was sealed. No one begged for mercy. No one expected it. The Dominion had never shown mercy to its enemies, and now, in its final moments, it would receive none in return. Zorval stood alone in his palace, staring at the burning ruins of his world. He had believed in the Empire's eternal rule, in the strength of its fleets, in the fear it instilled in lesser species. But fear was not enough. Power was not enough. The Dominion had ruled through terror, and now it had found something even more terrifying than itself. The humans had not fought for conquest. They had fought for survival. And when a species fights for survival, it becomes unstoppable. As the Dauntless prepared to unleash its final attack, Zorval closed his eyes, accepting what was to come. The Empire was dead. The Dominion was no more. And humanity, the species they had once dismissed as weak, now stood as the new masters of the galaxy. The message spread like wildfire. Across countless worlds, through every communication channel, on every colony, station, and warship, the warning echoed. No one knew exactly where it had come from, only that it could not be ignored. It was not a desperate cry for help, not a plea for peace, but something far more terrifying, a declaration. The humans had spoken, and now the galaxy had no choice but to listen. For centuries, the great empires of the stars had dismissed humanity as insignificant. They were a young species, barely stepping into the void, unworthy of attention. The Dominion had believed the same before it fell. The mighty warlords, the ruthless conquerors who had once terrorized the galaxy, were no more. Their fleets had been reduced to drifting wreckage, their homeworld burned to ashes, their name erased from history. And at the center of their destruction was not an armada, not a coalition of enemies, but a single warship, the Dauntless. Those who had witnessed the war still refused to believe what had happened. A lone human vessel, no larger than a battleship, had done what no species had dared to attempt. It had dismantled an empire. It had turned the Dominion's own weapons against them, had shattered their defenses without warning, and had erased their leaders in a single night. No negotiation, no mercy, no second chances. It had arrived, it had spoken, and then it had destroyed. And now, it spoke again. The warning came in every language, across every network. The voice was calm, emotionless, yet filled with a weight that sent a chill through all who heard it. Do not mistake our silence for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for fear. The Dominion thought they could erase us. They thought we were prey. They were wrong. In the cold darkness of space, leaders of distant civilizations gathered, watching the recorded footage in silence. They saw the mighty fleets of the Dominion burning, the destruction of entire warships without a single shot fired in return. They saw how the Dauntless had moved unseen, how it had known the Dominion's every move before they made it. The war had not been a battle, it had been an execution. The message continued, its meaning clear. We do not seek war. We do not desire conquest. But if you come for us, if you think we will bow, if you believe that we will break you, we'll share the Dominion's fate. There was no arrogance in the words, no unnecessary threat. It was simply the truth. The Dauntless was proof of that truth. It was not just a weapon. It was not just a warship. It was a promise. A promise that humanity would never again be hunted. A promise that those who dared to challenge them would not live to regret it. The galactic powers, once unshaken in their dominance, now faced an impossible choice. The humans were no longer a curiosity. They were no longer a species to be ignored. They had made their stand, and they had won. The empires that had once ruled the stars with absolute control now found themselves hesitating. Were they truly ready to risk war with a species that had single-handedly erased one of the galaxy's greatest powers? Could they afford to ignore the warning? On 1,000 homeworlds, in the war rooms of the most powerful nations, leaders whispered in hushed voices. Some called for immediate action, for an alliance to crush the humans before they became an unstoppable force. But others, those who had studied the war, those who had seen what the Dauntless had done, knew better. There would be no second chance. If the galaxy turned its weapons against humanity, it would not be another war. It would be an extinction event. And so, the stars remained silent. The warning had been given. The choice was clear. Humanity would not strike first. But if provoked, if threatened, if challenged, then the galaxy would burn.